Have you ever felt like you had to try too hard just to be noticed? Like you had to talk more, do more, be more, just to earn someone's attention, their respect, their approval. And yet, after all that effort, you still felt invisible, exhausted, and somehow not enough. You're not alone. Most of us have fallen into that trap, believing that the louder we are, the more we'll be seen. But here's the truth, no one tells you. Real magnetism doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from letting go, gracefully. When you stop reacting to every little thing, when you're no longer pulled around by emotions or the need to please, something powerful happens. You begin to radiate calm, strength, presence. You don't have to prove anything because you've already owned who you are. That's the essence of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that guided warriors, leaders, and thinkers through chaos with stillness, self-mastery, and inner freedom. And today, you'll discover why being detached and non-reactive isn't cold or distant. It's magnetic. You don't have to chase, you just have to stand still and let the world come to you. Number 1, non-reactivity is the ultimate magnetism. Some people walk into a room and command attention without saying a word. It's not because they're loud or trying to stand out. Quite the opposite. It's their calm presence, their quiet confidence that sets them apart. In a world growing increasingly chaotic, where most are pulled into emotional reactions and knee-jerk responses, the ability to stay calm becomes quietly, yet powerfully, magnetic. Not reacting doesn't mean not feeling. It means mastering your emotions to the point where you choose your response. This kind of strength is something no social skills class can teach. That strength, silent but unmistakable, is what makes someone truly different. In Stoic philosophy, non-reaction isn't indifference. It's the clearest expression of inner strength. The person easily swayed by emotion is still at the mercy of circumstance. But the one who pauses before speaking, who observes before reacting, that's the person who's truly in control. And in critical moments, that control is often the difference between success and failure, between life and death, sometimes literally. Captain Chesley Sully Sullenberger isn't remembered for motivational speeches. He's remembered for staying almost supernaturally calm when both engines of his plane failed mid-air. As panic spread among the passengers, Sully didn't react emotionally. He didn't let fear take over. He acted swiftly, clearly, and precisely, and landed the plane safely on the Hudson River, saving everyone on board. That wasn't a miracle. It was the result of decades spent training calmness into a conscious reflex. Are you training yours? What's interesting is how often we react without realizing it. Have you ever just stopped, right in the middle of an argument? No defending, no explaining, no trying to prove a point. At first, it feels like surrender, like you're giving up. But if you stay with that discomfort, something else rises. A steady stillness, a quiet space from which you begin to see things more clearly. The most compelling people aren't the best talkers. They're the ones who know when to stay silent. We've all been hurt by someone's words, and our first instinct is often to strike back, to protect ourselves. But have you ever stopped and asked, what am I protecting? My ego, my image, or just a version of myself I don't want to let go of? When you're calm enough not to react, you realize you're not losing anything. You're preserving your energy. You're not handing control of your emotions to someone else like they're holding a remote. Seneca once wrote, He who is everywhere is nowhere. If you react to every criticism, every piece of news, every wave of drama, you scatter yourself into pieces, and each piece becomes a weakness. But if you stay centered, solid, grounded, and silent when there's no need to speak, you become unreadable, unshakable, and deeply magnetic. Try something simple. Next time someone says something that triggers you, pause for 3 seconds. Just 3. Don't speak. Don't roll your eyes. Don't flinch. Sit with the feeling and notice where your impulse wants to go. Then choose. Choose what's worth saying or nothing at all. That's a 3-second superpower. And here's the twist. The less you react, the more clearly you see others. When you're not led by emotion, you begin to sense what's really driving people. Anger often masks fear. Excessive talking often hides a need for validation. And when you see that, you stop reacting. You start understanding. And from that understanding, you lead. True presence doesn't come from how you look. It comes from what stays steady inside you, while the world tries to shake you. It's not lit by a spotlight, but forged in the dark moments you walk through, without losing yourself. And once you've felt the power of non-reaction, you'll realize this. Behind that calm lies something deeper, a kind of quiet not everyone has, but everyone is drawn to. We'll meet that stillness in the next lesson, where you'll see that in a noisy world, silence is the loudest voice. Number 2, calm minds command attention. Have you ever noticed what's become the rarest thing in the middle of car horns, buzzing phones, collaboration invites, and the endless scroll of updates? It's not attention, it's not success, it's silence. What was once our natural state has now become so unusual, it can even seem suspicious. Go silent for 3 days online, and people start asking, is everything okay? But silence isn't always a sign of something broken. Sometimes it's the clearest proof of strength. In an era where emotions are engineered for engagement, someone who knows how to stay silent isn't just humble. They're someone who refuses to be dragged into a noisy battle everyone else thinks is important. No knee-jerk reactions, no desperate opinions, no fear of being misunderstood. That's a rare kind of magnetism, because when the crowd fights to be heard, the one who stays quiet makes everyone lean in. When intentional, silence becomes a kind of stance, not a wall made of stone, but one built from self-control and awareness. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury," not reacting, not lowering yourself to answer what's beneath you. That's confidence at its highest level. And nothing pulls people in like someone unmoved by the chaos around them. Keanu Reeves isn't a stoic philosopher, but he lives like one. He doesn't over-appear. He avoids pointless arguments. He doesn't chase the spotlight like most celebrities. And that's exactly why people can't stop talking about him, despite him saying almost nothing. In an entertainment world where everyone's yelling to be seen, the person who steps back, who speaks less, becomes the calm eye in the storm. But this isn't just about celebrities. Think back to that one colleague you worked with, the one who never interrupted in meetings, who only spoke when it truly mattered. When they talked, the room shifted. Have you noticed? The words of a quiet person land 3 times harder than everyone else's, not because they're smarter, but because they know when not to speak. We often confuse reacting with responding. A reaction is instant, impulsive, predictable. A response is slow, considered, often surprising. Real influence doesn't come from speed. It comes from depth. That's why people who stay grounded in chaos make us feel safe and trustworthy. They're not blown around by the crowd. Silence isn't just a wise move. It's an ancient virtue, even echoed in the Bible. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. If even a fool seems wise in silence, then what about you? Someone with reason, depth, and discipline. How will you use silence as your power? If you want to master silence that carries weight, start with small steps. When you're about to fire off a defensive message, stop for 5 minutes. Delete it. Rewrite it as if you were a calm stranger. When someone insults you, look them in the eye, but don't say a word. Stay silent, not to endure, but to show that your presence doesn't require a reaction. When you stop letting emotion hijack you, you start to control the whole room. Sometimes, what earns you respect isn't what you say. It's knowing when not to say anything at all. In today's world, silence isn't background. It's the exclamation mark. And if you learn to be quiet at the right moment, you won't just become more compelling. You'll become more trusted, more unpredictable, and yes, more dangerous. Silence is the beginning. But if you've ever feared that pulling back might make you feel left out, it's time to flip that idea. Because the next lesson is this: distance isn't emptiness. It's the territory where your inner strength gets forged. And once you've walked that ground, you'll never need anyone to validate your worth again. Number 3, letting go makes you powerful, not cold. Have you ever noticed? We grow up in a world that teaches us, if we're not heard, not seen, not agreed with, we don't exist. So we react, we explain, we resist. We live as if we're standing in a dark room, waving desperately, hoping someone will turn on the light. But the Stoics are different. They don't need light from outside. They generate their own. And this light isn't dazzling, demanding every eye. It's steady, quiet, persistent. It starts with one simple but difficult choice: to let go of the need for recognition, to live as though you are already enough, even if no one sees you. Not everyone understands that kind of detachment. To many, it looks like emptiness. But to the Stoic, it's the source of strength. Detachment isn't avoidance. It's not turning your back on the world. It's refusing to let the world control you. It's closing the mental windows we leave open for opinions, applause, and criticism, so we can keep that space for ourselves. True detachment doesn't make someone cold. It means they no longer trade inner peace for attention. The less you need others to validate your worth, the more that worth becomes real. Ask yourself, if every compliment disappeared tomorrow, would you still believe you're enough? David Goggins, former Navy SEAL and author of Can't Hurt Me, once shared how he trained alone in the dark. No praise, no cheering crowds. People only noticed him after he had already become a machine. That wasn't isolation. That was a choice, to live with intensity, free from emotional dependence on others. He ran hundreds of miles on torn knees and blistered feet. No stories, no vlogs, just silence. And because he needed no audience, people became even more curious. His detachment made him mysterious. But the real magnetism wasn't the mystery. It was that he didn't need permission or applause to exist. The greatest freedom isn't doing whatever you want. It's not being forced to do what you don't want. When you're no longer tethered to opinions, you become truly free. And that calm freedom, that quiet confidence, is what draws people in. True presence doesn't shout, it radiates, and the strongest energy always comes from the stillest place. Try this. The next time you catch yourself explaining, just to make someone else comfortable, pause. Ask yourself, is this truly necessary? If you choose silence, what do you lose? If the answer is nothing, you may have just protected a piece of your power. That power isn't loud. It's like gravity, unseen but undeniable. Today's world tells us, if you're not visible, always replying, always reacting, you'll be forgotten. But because everyone else is constantly reacting, the ones who step back, the ones who don't need to show up all the time, become rare. They're the pause in a noisy song, the period at the end of a long sentence that makes you stop and think. Detachment isn't emptiness. It's where strength gathers. No one may notice it right away. But once you start living this way, you'll feel it. Less tension, less fear of judgment, less craving for approval. You don't show up to be accepted. You show up because you've accepted yourself. And that changes how others see you too. So which life will you choose? Showing up to be seen, or standing still to go deeper? When you choose detachment, you don't disappear. You become unmistakably clear. And then you discover something deeper. Sometimes it's what you don't say that makes people listen. Because silence, when it carries weight, can command an entire room. But that kind of weight isn't accidental. It starts the moment you stop. Stop reacting, stop explaining, stop speaking just to be heard. But that's another lesson about why, in a world drowning in noise, silence speaks louder than any argument ever could. Number 4, your silence disarms more than your words. There are times when speaking up doesn't help you feel understood. It just gets you judged. The more you try to argue back, the deeper you're pulled into someone else's game. A game where victory doesn't belong to who's right, but to who's louder. In a society where speed of response is mistaken for strength, the one who stays silent, intentionally, not passively, becomes the one people actually listen to. No one teaches us how to stay silent. We're taught to react, to defend our egos, to win the argument. But rarely are we told that not reacting can be a powerful form of control. It's not because you have nothing to say. It's because you understand that saying it would serve no real purpose. Silence isn't weakness. It's a counterattack no one sees coming. You withdraw your energy from the conflict, letting it burn itself out. Not every battle is worth the cost of your inner peace. One person who understood this deeply was Barack Obama. During his presidency, he was often called passive or media shy. But that wasn't a lack of courage. It was a calculated strategy. He avoided direct confrontations with the press, limited formal briefings, and instead appeared in places where his voice felt more human and unforced. Politico called it a soft media strategy, a way to bypass the noise of political debate and speak directly to those uninterested in the shouting match. Ironically, that quiet approach frustrated critics who suddenly had no target to latch onto. When they screamed into the void and got no reply, they were the ones left isolated. Stoics don't speak to react. They don't argue to prove a point. They understand that most conflicts begin when egos demand to be right. And the bigger the ego, the easier it is to control. The silent person isn't numb. They're aware. They know emotions don't need to be defended with words, but protected with discipline. Ever lost your temper in a group chat? Snapped back at someone online because of one irritating comment? And did that ever actually make you feel more respected or just more exposed? The quicker we react, the more predictable we become. The better we master silence, the more disarming we are. Because when you don't react, you give your opponent no foothold to strike from. That's the move of someone who truly knows themselves. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." True strength doesn't come from countering every blow. It comes from being unmoved by what doesn't deserve your energy. Let others reveal themselves through their reactions. As for you, you don't need to jump into the mud just to prove you're clean. It sounds simple, but it's not easy. Staying silent in an argument is like clenching your fist in front of a crowd, begging you to throw the first punch. It demands inner clarity. I'm silent because I'm in control, not because I'm afraid. And the amazing thing is, others can feel that. Even if you say nothing. If you want to practice this, start small. Next time someone says something that makes you want to snap, don't. Just breathe. Take a mental step back. Ask yourself, is what I'm about to say coming from truth or from my discomfort with feeling powerless? If you're not sure, don't say it. One needless sentence can do more damage than 100 apologies can undo. Don't let silence be a void. Let it be a space you command, a pause that changes the air in the room. In meetings, try not to say anything for the first few minutes. Watch. Listen closely. You'll see people reveal their intentions, insecurities, and pressure points. And when you finally speak, one sentence might shift everything. Most of all, silence makes you magnetic. Not in a flashy or charming way, but in the kind of way that makes people wonder what you're thinking. When you speak less, every word gains weight. When you don't rush to respond, your presence deepens. People aren't drawn to noise, they're drawn to mystery. If you've read this far, congratulations. You're not just watching a video, you're training your inner power. Thank you for your patience. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. Not for the algorithm, but because this is a space where you can keep sharpening your mind, steadying your heart, and building a presence that's hard to shake. Stick around till the end. Each piece matters if you want to not just understand Stoicism, but live it. Number 5. Boundaries aren't walls, they're standards. People often believe that to be liked, we need to always be agreeable, always available, always accommodating, always saying yes. But think about it. How do you really feel when someone agrees to everything without question? Annoyed, maybe? On the flip side, isn't there something quietly powerful about someone who can say no, calmly and clearly, without anger, without long-winded excuses? That kind of presence doesn't come from pleasing others. It comes from having boundaries. People who set boundaries know themselves. They don't let others cross their core values. They don't overreact, but they don't allow themselves to be controlled either. They can smile and still say no. And that earns them respect, not resentment. Because boundaries are an unspoken declaration of dignity. And in a world that's increasingly noisy and superficial, dignity is magnetic. You see this clearly in Serena Williams. Under flashing cameras and the weight of public expectation, she protects her inner space. When the media pushes too far, she doesn't lash out or engage in drama. She steps back. She draws a line. She remains a fierce athlete, a fighter, but never at the cost of her privacy or autonomy. That's why she isn't just respected as a champion. She's admired as a whole, grounded human being. In Stoic philosophy, setting boundaries isn't just a communication skill. It's proof of a mind trained not to waver. When you're clear about what you will and won't accept, you stop being swept up in other people's emotions. You don't react under pressure because you've already decided, this is what keeps my peace, and this is where I stand to protect it. So how do we bring this into real life, where co-workers make unreasonable demands, friends overstep, and partners try to manage our emotions? The answer isn't to become cold or evasive. It's to be steady and unmistakably clear. For instance, you decide you won't answer work messages after 9 p.m. Some might grumble at first, but if you stick to it, they learn to respect it. Not because you forced them, but because you taught them how to treat you. Here's a simple but powerful tool. Anytime someone makes a request, don't answer right away. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, if I say yes, am I honoring my values or just afraid of being rejected? That question doesn't just help you control your response. It gradually reshapes the person you're becoming. There's a truth most people miss. The more intentional your boundaries, the more freedom you gain. Not because you're dodging responsibility, but because you're choosing your life based on what truly matters. You're not reactive, not dependent on others' approval. You're grounded because you've learned to guard what matters. So, what happens when you say no? Some people may be upset at first, but eventually they'll respect you. They'll see you as someone who can't be easily manipulated, and that makes you harder to reach, more mysterious, more trustworthy. 3 traits that create deep, lasting attraction that no appearance alone can manufacture. Now ask yourself, have you ever said yes just to avoid upsetting someone? Ever felt drained because you didn't draw the line? And if so, when do you want to change? Start small. Decline an unreasonable meeting. Let a message wait. Say, I need more time. These seemingly tiny moments are the first bricks in building a version of you that is self-possessed and powerfully compelling. Because once you learn to hold the right distance, something strange happens. People start wanting to come closer, not because you tried to attract them, but because you didn't need to. Someone who sets boundaries carries a quiet edge, and that's where the next lesson begins. Mystery and unpredictability. Not something you can fake, not something you perform. It shows up when you stop trying to prove yourself and keep only what truly belongs to you. Number 6, mystery and unpredictability. Not something you can fake, not something you perform. It shows up when you stop trying to prove yourself and keep only what truly belongs to you. Mystery isn't about hiding in the shadows or playing games. It's about refusing to be fully predictable. When people can't place you, when they can't guess your next move, when they can't pull you into their script, they begin to lean in. They watch closer. They respect the space you hold. Stoicism teaches us that control begins with the self. And the more you govern yourself, the less you need to announce, explain, or defend, the more unpredictable you become to others. Predictability makes you easy to manipulate. If people know you'll always react, always explain, always seek approval, they own the strings. But when you're centered, when you don't react on cue, you break the pattern. You stop being a puppet in their play. Think about Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, and yet, instead of broadcasting every decision, he wrote quietly in a journal, Meditations, words never meant for the public eye. His power wasn't in what he announced, it was in what he embodied. Or consider Bruce Lee. He once said, "Be like water. Water is unpredictable. It takes the shape of its container. It flows, crashes, adapts, and yet it cannot be controlled." That is mystery. That is strength. In life, mystery is created not by hiding, but by choosing. Choosing what to reveal, choosing when to speak, choosing how much of yourself you allow the world to access. Here's a simple way to practice it. Stop over-explaining. The next time someone questions your decision, instead of laying out every reason, simply say, "That's what I've decided." Notice the shift. Suddenly, you're not defending, you're defining. Or try this. When someone presses you for your next move, don't reveal everything. Share only what serves your vision, not what satisfies their curiosity. Mystery builds presence. Unpredictability builds respect. Together, they form a shield, because when no one can fully read you, no one can fully control you. And that, the Stoics remind us, is true freedom. But there's one last step. Mystery and unpredictability mean nothing without proof. At the end of the day, the world doesn't remember what you promised. It remembers what you did. That's why the final lesson is this. Let your actions speak louder than your arguments. Attention gained through performance is always in debt to someone else's expectations. It may come fast, but it leaves just as quickly, because it was never rooted in the real you. It was borrowed from trends, from gossip, from glances that were never meant for you. And when you get used to living in the glow of someone else's spotlight, you forget that you were always a source of light too. So how do you become that kind of person? Not by forcing yourself to look calm, not by pretending not to care, but by building an inner life so full, so steady, that your ego doesn't need to be inflated by others. Start with the smallest things. When you catch yourself replying to a message just so you won't seem cold, pause and ask, am I acting from clarity or from fear of judgment? Before you post something just to get likes or prove you're doing fine, ask, can I let my peace exist without public validation? This isn't about cutting off social connection. It's about cleaning up inside so you can connect from a place of fullness, not lack. Inner wholeness doesn't come from empty affirmations. It comes from a deep, daily discipline, like giving yourself 10 quiet minutes each morning. No phone, no expectations, just noticing whether your mind is restless or calm. Over time, you'll see some insecurities don't need to be fixed. They just need to stop being fed. And don't underestimate the power of saying no. No to empty conversations, no to hollow praise, no to behaviors that tether you to others' approval. Every time you say no to what is hollow, you say yes to what is real, to the part of you that knows peace doesn't need proof. Don't be afraid of being misunderstood. Even Jesus was misunderstood. He said, beware of practicing your righteousness before other people in order to be seen by them. You don't have to explain your integrity. Just live it and let it speak for itself. The most magnetic people aren't the ones who have it all. They're the ones who've stopped chasing it all. When you stop chasing attention, your light starts to shine. When you stop reacting out of habit, your presence gains gravity. Not everyone has the courage to live like this, but you can start right now with one simple act: choosing not to react when you don't have to. Stop seeking attention. Start building presence. Stop polishing your image. Start living with depth. No one can take your wholeness from you unless you hand it over. And when you hold on to it, you don't just become magnetic, you become irreplaceable. We've just explored 7 reasons why being detached and non-reactive can make you incredibly attractive. But if there's one thing you take away from this video, let it be this: you don't need to chase approval to be valuable. You just need the clarity to stop giving your energy to what doesn't deserve it. Each lesson is a piece of the puzzle. Learning to master your emotions instead of letting them master you. Pausing before reacting, stepping back from the noise, breaking free from the need to be seen or validated. You've started to reclaim your inner axis, quiet, steady, unshakable. And that's when something shifts. You no longer reach outward to prove yourself. You radiate from within. If something in this video stirred something deeper in you, a desire to live more intentionally, more powerfully, more freely, then leave a like as a quiet promise to yourself. And if you're ready to walk this path with us, the path of strength, stillness, and stoic clarity, then subscribe to the channel. The journey is far from over, and we'll take the next steps together.